Guys, I discovered something fascinating. One day, I was thinking that there have been several recent cartoons starring brothers, but almost none starring sisters for some reason. And then I started thinking through siblings in different shows, and I realized there's a definite pattern that I probably should have known but never thought about before. Characters in television shows tend to have a sibling of the opposite sex. And just to make sure I wasn't imagining things, I compiled a list of shows and made charts, because we like to be thorough here at youtube.com/@Dunestone6816. So here I have a list of shows in which the primary protagonist has one sibling. This is obviously not a comprehensive list, but it is a list of every series I could think of, including several shows that I've never watched, but I read up on the characters just so I'd have more data. The vast majority of these are children's shows, not because I was trying to target children's shows, but because most shows that star a child who lives with his parents and siblings tend to be children's shows, and that's where most of my useful data comes from. This is strictly television series, no books, video games, stage plays, or movies, though some of these are adapted from the above. Movies, interestingly, seem to follow the opposite trend, which is something I'll have to look into later. I intended for this list to include only American and Canadian shows, but I'm pretty sure a few European shows snuck in. Suffice it to say, I excluded anything that I think of as a foreign show. At least there are no anime here. I have no idea whether or not anime follows a similar pattern. Almost all of these series have aired during my lifetime, meaning from the 90s to now. And lastly, I must admit, I did do a little bit of cheating in making a list. Some of these characters technically have a third sibling that I ignored for one of two reasons. In a few cases, the protagonist has two siblings who are twins. In these cases, I am treating the twins like one character because they functionally are. They are always extremely similar, if not identical in personality, and it would change very little in terms of plot and character dynamics if they merged into one person. The other case where I cheated is with some protagonists who have a second sibling who's a baby. Now, this is no reflection of my view on babies in real life, but on TV, most of the time, babies are barely characters. There's not much room for them to have a nuanced relationship with the other kids, and they tend to contribute very little to the family dynamic. For example, how much can you say about Arthur and DW's relationship versus Arthur and Kate's? So in cases where the protagonist has two siblings and one's a baby, I have ignored the baby. Alright, with all that criteria laid out, here's what I found. I was right. Assuming this is a representative sample, there is a 72% likelihood of the protagonist having an opposite-sex sibling. Also, as I suspected, there is a significant preference for younger siblings versus older siblings. Although what I find disheartening is, I've done the same thing with my own characters. I gave this boy a little sister, I gave this girl a little brother, this boy a little sister, this girl a little brother, this boy a little sister. Turns out I'm a trend follower, even when I'm completely unaware of the trend. But why is this? I assume that in real life, a two-child household has a 50% chance of producing two of the same sex. So why is there such a strong preference for opposite-sex siblings in fiction? I mean, obviously, every individual creator has their own reasons for writing their characters the way they did, but when so many people follow the same trend, there must be a reason. Well, it could be that the creators want to have both sexes present in the cast. Giving your male protagonist a sister is an easy excuse to have some female representation in your show. I believe this is also why kids on TV tend to either have one best friend of the opposite sex, or two best friends, one of both sexes, whereas I'm pretty sure most kids in real life just have best friends who are the same sex as they are. Of course, a lot of these shows do have a protagonist with both an opposite sex best friend and an opposite sex sibling. Maybe the sibling is the affirmative action girl. My other totally non-academic personal theory is that it helps with conflict. In many of these shows, the protagonist is written to have an often adversarial relationship with their sibling. Perhaps it is assumed, whether consciously or subconsciously, that opposite-sex siblings will naturally be at odds with each other more often. I don't know if that's true in real life, and the same-sex siblings on this list definitely don't uniformly get along better, but that is my best theory. This would explain why the same trend doesn't exist with co-starring siblings. And to clarify, the first chart was only counting shows in which there is one definite main protagonist and they have a sibling who's a supporting character. I have another chart counting several shows in which 2 or 3 siblings co-star as the main protagonist equally, and there, the trend disappears. You can see here that in shows with two co-starring siblings, same-sex pairs and opposite-sex pairs are more or less equally common. I think I can accurately say that the siblings in these shows are generally shown to be extremely close. While sibling rivalry is rarely ever completely absent, these shows tend to focus more on the siblings as best friends, as partners in crime, as collaborators in whatever they set out to do. This would be consistent with the theory that creators are more willing to write same-sex siblings when the show focuses on their bond rather than their conflict. In shows where just one sibling is the main character, the other sibling is more likely to exist as an obstacle or a source of conflict, so the creators tend to make them the opposite sex, assuming that leaves the two of them with less in common. This would also explain why movies, at a glance, seem to follow the opposite trend. When siblings appear prominently in feature films, they tend to be the same sex. This is especially true when the film's story revolves around a sibling's relationship to some degree. When the writers want to focus on the bond between the siblings, they tend to make them the same sex. But when one of the siblings just plays a supporting role in the film, they're more likely to be a different sex. But that's just a theory. I'm not going to finish the bit because I did it in the last video, and if I do it in both of the first two videos, then I feel like I have to do it every time, and I don't want to commit to that. But anyway, that's my theory. Feel free to share your own theories or criticize my research methods in the comments. In conclusion, I've been a sheep, but I need to switch gears. Before I go, I want to recognize some folks. A few months ago, I posted one mediocre video and was surprised to receive several subscribers for it. I don't know why you did that. I gave no indication that I intended to make any more videos. But since you're here, I guess I'll see you again in 8 months. I'm just kidding. I'm never uploading again.